Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. All right, today we are joined by Ashley Chamberlain, who is the founder and CEO of Chamberlain and Good Bookkeeping Services. Just full disclosure, Ashley and I have known each other for a couple of years. And so this is not like most of my podcasts where I'm meeting somebody for the first time. So I know a lot of her story, but I hope to learn even more today. So Ashley, let's start with you just kind of introducing yourself. Tell a little bit about what you do.
Sure. We do have quite the history. We go way back. So you've probably heard my elevator speech more than any known human on this planet. But I started Chamberlain and Good Company a few years ago, several years ago now. And we do bookkeeping, accounting, and tax services for individuals, small business owners to medium-sized businesses.
Excellent. So yes, I've heard your pitch a few times, and I know you're great at what you do. But tell me about kind of what inspired you to go out on your own. I mean, you I know you worked in industry for a while, so tell us a little bit about that spark.
So I have always been an accountant by trade. I was working as a CFO for a multi-million dollar construction company, and I loved it. I loved everything I did. I loved working with people. Um, I had no qualms, missing piece. I thought it was just the bee's knees. But then I came to a point where my kids were about to go into school and thought, I need to make some side money. I need to be able to afford the school that I want to send them to, which was a private school. And that was important to me at the time. And so I thought, well, I'll just start this and see where it goes. Absolutely no intention to own my own situation. I very much enjoyed the consistent paychecks, the benefits that come with working as a W-2 employee. But I needed some extra cash. And so I started putting myself out there a little bit. I got the LLC, tried to be responsible, be above board. And I started getting some clients. About 4 to 6 months in, I got to a point where I realized um, I can't do both anymore. We grew pretty quickly. I say we, me, myself, and I grew pretty quickly in the first 6 months. And it was all organic. So no paid advertising, no flyers in your mailbox. It was just word of mouth. I realized I knew a lot of people in the industry and just started putting my name out there. I'm looking for some extra side income. And it grew. And I got to a point where I had to make a decision if I was going to see this through this Wild West territory of owning a business, or if I was going to stay as a CFO of this big company and feel that cushion.
Yeah.
So very unexpectedly, very out of character for most accountants, made this leap of faith. Um, we did a lot of, say, my husband and I did a lot of prayer around it and had to see what was right for us. And I went to the owner of the company I was working for, and I had this conversation about my next steps. He knew I had started the company and was doing side work, and he was totally on board. And I came to him and said, "This is the situation. This is a good situation, but here we are. I got to make a decision." And he said, "Well, I'll go with you." And so that made it a little easier. But he is still a client today, and
Well, that's awesome.
here we are a few years later. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I've known a couple of coaches that kind of did the same thing when they went out and their current employer kept them on, and that certainly makes that leap a little gentler when you got a little bit of that cushion going with you. Yeah,
Yeah, it
cool.
was a little easier. Yeah. And I didn't have investors. I didn't have a partner in it. I didn't have all this startup, money, but I never minimized the fact that I had a stable job while I was starting. And so that definitely gave me a little bit of support to feel just kind of comforted. If this doesn't work out, I'm not losing my house. I'm not losing, all this money. I'm just putting myself out there. I think that helped
Yeah.
with the transition. So, people
Yeah.
always ask me, how'd you make the leap? It's like, well, a good boss, prayer, and a good partner who was very
Yeah.
supportive.
Yeah. Well, and it's so true. I talk to a lot of prospective business owners, and it's one of the things I always ask is, how's your, if you're married, if they're married or in a relationship, how's that other person feel about it? And every once in a
Yeah.
while, they're like, well, they're not sure. I'm like, you better button that down. It's
Yeah,
kind of
it's
important.
huge. Yeah, it is. It's
Because
a pretty big deal.
yeah, especially in those first 18 months. I mean, people don't realize this. You and I've talked about this before, that in that first like year or two, I mean, there's months where you're like, okay, it's a little leaner this month than I was planning, and like, okay, we're not going to go out, we're not going to go out for our fancy anniversary dinner this year. We're going to have to like,
Hmm.
scale back and maybe do, well, I started to say chi-chis, that's dating me, but you know, just anywhere, pick your
Yeah,
Cheddar's. There we go. That's where I was like,
right,
but
right.
you have to make those sacrifices. So you are not your typical accountant. Another thing about me is I come from an family of accountants, and I know what accountants typically are. My mom had her own bookkeeping service as well, so
Mhm.
I've kind of lived through some of that that you've
Yeah,
gone through, but you've built, like my mom always, it was just her. You've built a whole company. You have a team. You've got a partner now. Tell us a little bit about the growth that you've seen.
yeah. It's so true when you said it. Those first 12 to 18 months are, I would say, they're brutal. Because it's so emotional, it's so personal, and I'm not going to treat my business like a baby because I did read your book and I understand the implications of that. But it does feel like your heart is just out there into the world, and putting yourself out there is tough. So when I started, it was just me for about 6 months, and when I started getting really more than five clients, I started feeling this overwhelm. And I'm a mom of two boys, and so I had to make a lot of sacrifices that I wasn't really comfortable with, as far as
Yeah.
time. The money, I did have the cushion, of the job, and so while there were hard times where clients would leave or no new clients came in and I wasn't seeing this jump, I was blessed to have that cushion. So hiring became a necessity before I was ready. About 6 months in, I brought in, my best friend who, she also worked in the field for a very long time, accounting and construction, and it felt like very divine timing for us because she needed some extra work, and she's still with me today. This past year, she's become a partner. She's our CFO now, and very strategically, we along the way hired bookkeepers, accountants before we needed them. So there were several times that before I talk to you, on a coaching friend level, that I just had to sit and think, I either wait until I struggle or I go ahead, make the leap, hire before I'm ready, and then when we bring clients in, the clients won't feel that. So there were a lot of times that we hired and said it's going to be 1 to 2 hours a month, just hang in there. And I'm very, very lucky to say everyone we brought on was friends or family, which usually people
Yeah.
say don't do that.
Right. Or at least
And there
be
are
very
times,
cautious.
yeah, there are times that it's tough. I have some family that works for me now, and there are times it feels a little tough to separate, personal and business, but I'm very, very lucky. I have a team of about 10, and they are all, moms. They're all very big powerhouses in their own separate ways, and we have found a way to just seamlessly keep things going. We project we'll hire at least three new people this year, just based on our trend so far, and we just feel really blessed about it. We've been very lucky with the hiring department.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Are you going to continue the friends and family method, or at some point are you going to run out of friends that know how to do bookkeeping?
I think we're there. I think
Okay.
we have exhausted our resources. Not being from this area, I don't have a lot of family around here, and most of my family, they're W-2 employees. So the idea of being an independent contractor, a 1099, is scary to them. So the one family member that I did convince it was a good idea, she was a stay-at-home mom, and so I don't know if I'll be able to be as convincing to other friends and family. We might have to start outsourcing and reaching out to kind of the local base, see where we're at.
Yeah. Well, as you continue this global domination of the bookkeeping and accounting market, you you might have to, bring in some powerhouses like that. So
Yeah.
so what's been the biggest surprise? You're just a few years in. What's been the biggest surprise as a business owner?
Well, that question was a surprise, not the biggest, was a surprise. I think that the biggest surprise was when people talk about owning businesses, or if you are an employee and you look at the business owner, I think there's this glamorized idea of what owning a business looks like.
Yeah.
For me, in the industry that I was an accountant, the business owners I worked with were wealthy. Where I'm from, we called them farm rich.
Yeah.
So wealthy, blue collar
I know
guys,
what you
took
mean.
these
Yeah.
blue. Okay. So whether it was passed down from generation, the business, or they had money, there's this idea that they can do whatever they want,
Yeah.
and they can go on the golf course, or they can go take their wife out to eat whenever they want, and they don't even put in a full, workload. They work a
Right.
few hours a day. They just seem so happy, and this is the best life that they're living. And the biggest surprise was how wrong that is. That most business owners are actually working way over 40 hours and they're not getting paid for it. We do try
Yeah.
to help and make sure people, when we're working with them, do raise their pay, but it is such a glamorized thing that people do. It's kind of like being a rock star. I met my husband. I thought, he had toured and he had been on this cool bus with all his friends. But then when I was in the, trenches with him, I thought this is not glamorous. This is stinky. It's not fun. I don't like it. And it's the same thing with being a business owner sometimes. It's late nights. It's, phone calls from clients and then team members and having to be in the middle and having to be, very neutral sometimes, but very empathetic. It's kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah.
A lot expected for sure. And I
Yeah.
was not expecting that.
Yeah. So, folks, if you're listening, her husband is a rock star. He's actually very talented. Throw a plug in for him. Check out his music. Very talented guy. But so when they say you're a rock star, you actually can relate to that. He's, I guess, country rock star, but he's
Yes.
very rich,
Yeah.
Richard Chamberlain, right? Check him out
Yeah.
on you.
Richard Chamberlain.
Give him a plug for him too. Why not?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. He
uh,
definitely before we met, he was touring and he was a drummer and he was doing more jam band stuff. And that lifestyle had its own rules. And then today, he does more blues and country. And so just like a business owner, no one sees all of the practice that goes
oh
into
yeah,
preparing for a show. No one sees all the money that goes into like equipment maintenance and new strings as he plays guitar now. Any kind of lessons or educational courses, whatever that he has to do, no one sees that. They just see the end result and think it's great. And I
yeah,
think that's what
yeah.
people do with owning a business.
Well, and that's so true. I mean, just the business part of it. I remember when I started mine, I was having dinner with friends who they're both in the healthcare industry. They're both, well paid professionals in that industry. Have always worked for big healthcare organizations, and 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 the wife was asking me like, so who pays you? And I'm like, well, my company pays me. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but where does that money come from? I'm like, well, from my clients. And she's like, well, what if you don't have clients? And I'm like, well, then I don't have any money to pay me. And you could tell it was
Yeah.
just like right over her
Yeah.
head.
I,
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Could
Yeah.
not understand that concept. And that was, like I said, if I always say people that first 18 months is, some sleepless nights, some 3 a.m. wake up calls where your mind is
Yep.
going. And yeah, it's a,
Scary. Yeah.
there's some challenges like that. So what has been the biggest challenge for you? What's been the thing that you really had to uh, really dig deep to overcome?
Um, this might shock you because you know me. The hardest part has not been the actual accounting. That part feels easy. It hasn't been showing up for podcasts because I like talking to people. I think that as much as I joke about accountants being introverted, I think I'm a little bit of both, and I like
Yeah.
talking to people. The hiring has hard seasons. Hiring people sometimes it's hard, and especially when we feel under the wire or someone quits because they're overwhelmed. That part has its things. The biggest challenge was setting my own business up the same way I would help or expect someone I'm working with to do. So um, the systems and processes that, as a business owner, you're responsible for creating, you're responsible for educating and maintaining and passing on to your team, to your clients, expectations, having your mission statement. I didn't set any of that up. I just hit the ground and went forward, and it was working, and I didn't question it.
Yeah.
I didn't stop to think, what would I tell a client to do when they're starting a business? I just try to get by with the bare minimum to get started. And so now here we are years later, I'm thinking about, what are my values and, what is my mission statement? Because I can like take a moment and breathe a little and think about things like that. And it is challenging. It feels like a therapy session every time stuff like that is brought up because I'm trying to look inward and think about like, well, what do I want people to think about when they think about me? And it's tough work. It's harder than any client's accounting, any cleanup project, anything that we're doing, any tax return. It's much harder to do that self work and the business backbone stuff, the foundational work is much harder.
Yeah. Well, but the reason it's so important is to give you reason to go on because there's going to be tough times, and if you're not kind of grounded in that, understand the purpose and stuff, then it's real easy to, especially at your young age. I say that endearingly. Uh, I, that I mean, it's easy to, a lot of people throw in the towel. I've seen a lot of people throw in the towel because as soon as things get tough, they are like, oh, I could go get a job at XYZ corporation and,
Yeah,
make more than this and not deal with this stress. So, kudos to you for that. It is difficult. Uh,
it is.
you also mentioned you're a mom of young kids, and that's that's a challenge in itself. I have to admit I didn't have the courage. I dreamed of starting a business years ago, but I was not about to start a business when I had kids at home. I waited till it was like, if we're going to be homeless, it's just going to be my wife and me.
Yeah.
Not that we're going to ever be homeless, but
Right.
I was kind of
Yeah.
thinking I wasn't going to put my kids' college at risk and stuff like that. You took the risk very early. Talk about work-life balance and how, boundaries and things like that. How are you working through those things?
Um, I am young, first off. I'm not 40 yet. So I'm still a young chicken. Um, I guess that the when I was considering starting, I was at a top position for my industry that I had really hustled to get to. I finished the degrees. I did all the things on this checklist that I made up in my mind of things you have to do. And I did them faster than I thought, faster than most people in my industry. The position that I held was not held by people that were 29, 30 years old. And I did not want to take that for granted.
Mhm.
I also have never shied away from sharing struggle with my kids, sharing that, if you stick to this, you could get rewarded, or sometimes things don't work out, and this is what that looks like. They are both very involved. So I was getting degrees when my now oldest, he's 13, when he was growing up. And the reason that's so special to me now is he was able to be a part of the graduation. And so from my perspective, when you shy away from involving your kids in your own personal progress, you're not sharing what it's like to be human. And
Mm.
my kids have a great life now. They really don't worry about much, but that is why I feel like it's so important to teach gratitude and teach resilience, and to show them, sometimes I have long days, and sometimes that means we're not going to trampoline park because I have to be here. And I actually hate the trampoline park, so I'd rather be working. And it's days like that I want them to see, like, no, like, mom's working, and that's important too, and it helps provide, and it
Mm.
helps show them, if you're passionate about something, if you keep going, that there is something in the horizon for whatever that is. I have a feeling I
Yeah.
kind of know how they'll both turn out just based on personalities. One of them is just so cute and creative. So that's a little wild card. But the other one's very logical, tactical, practical. So I try to involve him as much as I can. He's scanning receipts for me during the summer. He's in the other room while I'm on a Zoom call. So he sees a little bit of what I do. And as far as the balance, I don't really believe there's such thing as a balance. I think that life commingles so much that it's finding the energy you want to put in what place at what time. And
Mm.
sometimes it just overlaps, and sometimes one part feels like it's failing and the other part's thriving, and that's just kind of life. So I definitely don't strive for a well balanced work and life. That just,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it's part of what I'm doing.
Yeah. That is so good. And uh, yeah, there's this whole fictional thing that work-life balance means 50-50. But I like how you put that. Now, if you can repeat it, we can always go back about a minute. That part about putting the right, how you put your energy in the right places. Having
Yeah.
enough energy to dedicate to your kids when they need it. Uh, Also having the energy to dedicate to your clients and to your staff when they need it. That's
Yeah.
that's actually a great way of putting it.
Yeah, it's protecting your peace where you can, trying to draw boundary lines so you are looking ahead saying, I know I want to serve my clients to the fullest ability. I also want to be the best mom that there ever was on the planet. But I can't do both at the same time. And I know that about myself. So it just starts with setting good boundaries that I still work on and change to this day. Sometimes it's you have a 3 week long winter break, which feels crazy, but you just have to adjust, and some things are out of your control. And if I were to try and do that 50-50, I would feel like I am not being true to myself, which is life is messy and we're just going to go with the flow as much as we can.
Yeah. That's some great stuff there. And I mean, you are I think we've I've told you this before. I think you're wise beyond your years. Uh, you have a lot of you come to me for coaching, but yet I think you're also a great coach as well. You may not call yourself that, but so you've got a podcast. We've plugged your husband's band, and let's plug, let's plug let's plug you your other beside your business, but let's plug your podcast as well. You just started your own podcast, and obviously second to mine. It's the greatest podcast,
Sure.
especially to come out of Louisville, Kentucky. But
Right.
tell, tell us a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish there.
So obviously second to yours, obviously. I started a podcast last December. It's called In Good Company, and it's a way for me to do similar to what you're doing, bring business owners to the table, be able to ask the questions for the audience to come and get little nuggets of wisdom if they are somewhere in a season of accounting, if they're somewhere in a season of marketing, they can come and learn. So far, I've done solo episodes, so they're a lot about tax and accounting. But I hope to have, guest interviews and really just this community collaborative experience. But it's still a baby podcast, so I'll probably change my mind 100 times.
Well, that's great, and it is good. I've listened to several episodes, and you've got some great content, great advice for entrepreneurs, and yeah, we're communicating a similar thing. Which, but there's a I'm a believer in the whole abundance mindset that there's an just a complete unmet need out there. Um, I think my part of my why statement says most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And so the more we can do to help educate them, I think it's beneficial for all of us.
Yep.
So everybody check
Very
that out as well. We'll throw that into the show notes and everything that's another thing to check out. So just back to the business. What do you see? You mentioned hiring a few folks. I know this past year you've acquired some work from some other folks that were, I guess, downsizing or right sizing their businesses and tossed you some clients, which is an awesome way to grow. But if you're looking forward, what's on the horizon for Chamberlain and Good?
See, John, this is why I knew you were supposed to bring the notes because we talk about this, and now I'm not going to know what the right thing to say, or you'll hold me accountable.
That's
Both
right.
of
I will
them
hold you
are okay.
accountable.
um, so I think for 2025, this to me has been the year of like catching my breath. Like I had mentioned, really solidifying our values, our aligning with the goals and mission statements and things of that nature that are true to what we've been doing and and continue to do. So for me, that looks like, we are in the process of acquiring an accounting firm, so finishing that up, but continuing to improve our own systems and processes. As our client base grows, my team grows alongside it, and the quick coffee chats that used to be called team meetings are now turning into 2-hour team meetings. And, we have to find a really good way to continue to communicate in this completely virtual remote world. So this is
Yeah.
my tweaking the systems and making them nice and shiny so we can continue to sustainably grow.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the biggest hurdles is getting past that 10 or so employees because you can't manage 10 people. It's just impossible to,
No.
you're at that point, you're having to start to go, okay, I've got to have some other people involved with leadership. I can't be in the middle of everything. I can't know what every client is experiencing. And that takes, it's a little bit of a leap of faith, right?
Scary. It's terrifying. Honestly, it's probably why I would love to have team meetings every other day because I want to know what's going on with every single one. So when a client comes in and I have a sales call with them, I get to know this business owner so well. It's like a courting phase, and I feel connected to them. I feel somewhat attached to them. And then now, because of our size, I have to just hand them to a manager, and it's a weird feeling for both
Yeah.
of us, not just me, I think.
Right.
So it's learning to let go. It's also learning to know um, what I need to know and what I need to have someone that I trust to know. And
Yeah.
that's been that's hard. That's the
Yeah.
challenging thing right now where we are, like you said, with 10 employees. It's no longer, Ashley at the top and then everybody else. It's a couple of steps
Yeah.
between each person, and it's a lot of trust. I'm very blessed to have the team I have, but I want to continue to grow and foster these trusting relationships so I don't feel like I have to know everybody's business all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the keys to delegation is understanding kind of what that handshake, what that dance kind of looks like, and
Mm-hmm.
are you checking in once a week or once a month or whatever? And so that's part of what you're figuring out. Uh,
Every
so
day or once a week, but every day. We're growing and thriving over here. But it is, I do think I can tell the responses from my team when I'm doing too much, because instead of just giving an answer, they're like, well, we already kind of talked about this. And I'm like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm the one that forgets, not you. So it's
Yeah.
learning. We're learning.
Yeah. It's like, okay, boss, leave us alone. We're good.
Pretty much in a nice
Yeah.
girlfriend cheerleader way, because it's all women and we don't want to hurt each other's feelings. So
Oh,
we're
yeah.
it's like emojis and voice memos, so we can hear the tone. A lot of voice memos, we can hear the tone of what they're saying, so we know it can't be taken out of
Oh,
context.
that's actually that's pretty smart, especially in today's world of our, voice
Yep.
memos are a lot easier. Uh,
Oh yeah. When you're on the go, I mean, they're all moms. They're all very busy and moving around. And I found that voice memos captures whatever they're thinking at that moment, which is
yeah,
usually what they actually need to get out versus a well thought out email or a well thought out. I
right.
use Google Chat, so a well thought out message. It's just what's on my mind right now. What do I need the most help with? That's
Yeah.
usually where the meat and potatoes is, anyways.
Okay. So you're doing voice memos over Google Chat is your typical way of doing it, or is it
Professionally,
over?
I should, but it's a texting because it
Text.
is friends and
Okay.
family. So, if I'm putting something in the chat, it's usually a Loom video. I do send a lot of
Yeah.
Loom videos
Yeah.
to share my screen and check in, but a lot of voice memos over text, so that person knows that I hear what they're saying, I understand, and how can I help in a genuine
Yeah.
way.
That's cool. I mean, that, for people listening, I mean, those are smart ways of staying connected in a more personal way than emailing and text, which are often misunderstood.
Hmm.
I've got some of the scars from my own career of sending the email with the wrong tone or whatever that was
Yeah.
misunderstood. Cool. Well, as we wrap up, and we could talk for hours and hours, but that will probably bore other people. So, and in the interest
No.
of maintaining and growing listeners, I always like to wrap up with this kind of question. Is basically just what advice would you give, especially to that young mom out there that might be thinking of starting a business? What advice would you have for them? As far as getting things going in the right direction.
Um, as far as if you're in that place that you're feeling this calling to start something, some people call it their inner voice, some people call it their gut, um, the divine download. Whomever you're feeling that pull from, it's telling you something. And people will say triggers are always a negative thing, but I'm going to challenge that and say triggers can also be a positive thing. That can be a blessing. It's telling you you want to work on something.
Yeah.
And one way to strategically get it started is surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. Surround yourself with
Yeah.
a community of people who know things you need to know. Never be the smartest person in the room. That does not help you or your business.
Yeah. And I know, you mentioned earlier about praying and faith, and that's a big component as well. I felt that tug 7 years ago really strongly that I'm like, I
Yep.
need to do this. And it was just
Yeah.
everything was pointing that way. And one of the pieces of advice I was given, because I would go out, I would be meeting with some of my mentors or some of my good friends, some of them from my corporate past, and
Hmm.
some would go, oh man, John, you're going to be great at that. And then some would be like, are you crazy? I mean, I remember one really good friend that worked for me for years, and he's a talented guy. He goes, "Are you nuts?" and uh, and
Yes.
so I was talking to another friend of mine who's another entrepreneur, and he said, "John, don't ever ask for directions from someone who hasn't been where you're going." And
Yep.
I'm like,
Love
that
that.
that is an awesome advice. And so
Yeah.
folks that are thinking about starting a business, you got two people here that have been where you're going, or at least have gone down that trail to some in some way. So Ashley's a
Yeah.
great resource. How can they get in touch with you, Ashley? If someone wants to just connect with you, or maybe they need bookkeeping and accounting services. How do they find you?
Um, so whatever the need, if it's you have a business idea and you want to chat about it, I love talking. And there are places to go to get me on the phone to talk about it. I would start with our website, chamberlainandgoodcompany.com. Fill out a little contact us form. It's pretty general, and just put your information in there. We'll chat. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So you can find us all across the platforms. I have a wonderful assistant who maintains all the things. So we are very, very reachable.
Yeah, excellent. And you are all over social media, doing a great job with that, as well as your podcast. So check all this out. You got some great resources here. And Ashley, I appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.